this is what it is. Yes, you deserve praise for the effort you took to raise the dramatic stakes. Do not forget, however, that I am Focalor, the god of justice, the embodiment of justice itself. Does it not strike you as even the least bit absurd to bring the very—
May I interpret these words as your refusal to stand trial? In that case, you will have the opportunity to defend your honor through a duel.
You would draw your blade against a god? I see. It seems like you have made up your mind.
Paimon can't believe it. She just surrendered.
What the heck is going on? Did I just see an Archon surrender to a...
Wow, how utterly humiliating.
Lady Furina, what is the meaning of this?
Shh! It would seem that there has been a misunderstanding. To be clear—
Looking for excuses again, huh?
I raised my hands just now to indicate my acceptance of the trial. No duel shall be necessary. I will admit, I'm sorry, everyone. I was unable to protect the people of Poisson. You are not the only ones to be disappointed in me. I, too, am exceedingly disappointed in myself. But now, it is time for the Hydro Archon to show you her I, Furina, will use this trial to show the world the true meaning of justice! This time, I will protect you. Applaud and rejoice. One of the most outrageous and fantastical arcs known to the opera epiclese is now unfolding before your eyes. Mark my words. This shall be one of the most exhilarating and brilliant shows ever to grace the stage of Fontaine. The trial of the Hydro Archon, Focalor, will now begin!
Woohoo!
Oh, no! Why does it feel like Furina just took over the whole thing? Like, also, even though she's still acting super dramatic,
All right, then. Who will be—
The court asks the prosecutor to please take the stand.
Is that so? Very well. Then please speak, witness of Tivat, my accuser and fated opponent. Also, please allow me to ask, as a final question before the trial begins, just how much work—
well, we did do a lot of prep after the meeting that day.
I can go over the tasks assigned to the Spina di Rosula, since they were rather straightforward and easy.
Navia, the president of the Spina di Rosula.
Most of the people who participated in the disturbance this morning were my subordinates. They changed into plain clothes and came to the Opera House as regular audience members, waiting for the perfect opportunity to incite insurrection against you. The people's resentment against their Archon has been building as more and more of the prophecy is fulfilled. A spark was all we needed to turn smoldering anger into a flame. Moreover, according to our understanding and analysis of you, when something like that occurred, you would likely flee the scene and head to Poisson by yourself. So, we arranged for a second group to lie in wait there.
So, you mean— the ones who scoured the settlement for me were also from the Spina?
And their goal was to force you to step into the giant magic box so you may personally participate in the greatest magic performance in all of Fontanian history.
That's right. That house was a magic box, rather than someone's residence.
As the super ultimate version of the setup that I used when I first performed at the Opera Epiclese, the volume of the box was increased by a whole order of magnitude, and the distance it traversed was the entire gap between Poisson and Areneas. Was an Archon instead of a human. My thanks, Furina. Without your help, we could never have pulled off such an extraordinary performance.
You're welcome?
Of course, this performance was only made possible with Father's support. The House of the Hearth spent a massive amount of labor in Mora to pull this off. We had to select a location, construct the giant magic box, dig a tunnel, and open up a
So, in other words, the earthquake that we felt within the giant magic box was...
That's right. It wasn't a sign of another disaster to come.
Then, I can guess Nervilette and Cloran's parts. You gathered a crowd, prepared a stage, and made sure that the champion... Also that as soon as I appeared on the stage, the trial may commence...
Yes, that is correct.
Well, Clorand, I must commend you for your courage. Only the most outstanding champion...
Thank you.
As for you, Traveler, I suppose your role was to keep me... You'd make sure that I didn't notice anything amiss before revealing yourself as my prosecutor once we'd arrived onto the stage.
Oh?
It's fine. The stage is already set, so there's no reason to disappoint the audience. Let's see this trial through to the
Madam Prosecutor, please allow me to pass this along. This is a document that Miss Charlotte applied for and received permission to share with you during the trial.
Huh? Charlotte wanted to give us something? Oh, so she's here too! Oh, let Paimon see. Wait. Then that means this So in other words, we can refer to this anthology of evidence. Let's quickly confirm the information in it. Just think of it as a refresher, alright?
You defeated the Hydro Archon in the very first duels you took part in at the Opera House. That's one for the history books, all right. I didn't think that you'd wind up getting to the bottom of the case I'd been following all this time. I guess you could also see this as a happy coincidence. This is the first time Monsieur Nervilette had a difference of opinion with the Oratrice. Even the Hydro Archon can't figure it out. A Fatui Harbinger. She's an extraordinary person. Her instinct must mean something. The fortress of Meripede was almost destroyed in a single day. That I didn't witness that scene personally will always be a source of professional regret, I think. According to Monsieur Nervilette, both Child and that whale should have been in the primordial sea at that time. I nearly lost my awesome friend Navia. To be honest, that still gives me shivers. The words of someone as extraordinary as a witch can probably only be truly understood when something surreal happens to you.
The prosecution and the defense are both in position. The trial shall now begin.
Oh, come on, Nervilette. There's no need to repeat all the unimportant legalese. Just fast forward to the part where the prosecution lays out my offenses. As the defendant and the lead actress of this performance, I still haven't even been informed of my supposed guilt. Of course, it is only natural for humans to struggle to understand the actions of a god. However, you will need more than that to convict me of a crime.
That's true, but my charge here is unrelated to your conduct as an Archon. Instead, I would like to charge you as a fraud who's never been the Archon in the first place.
Wait, what was that? Lady Furina's a fraud?
Hey, I came here thinking that...
Charge accepted. Lady Furina. Lady Furina.
I plead not guilty. How can I be guilty? There is no way that I, Focalor, otherwise known as Furina de Fontaine, a member of the Seven and the Regina of all waters, kindreds, peoples, and laws of Fontaine, could be anything other than your true Archon.
Yeah, even though Lady...
Yeah, I've never...
I have cause to believe that common sense will prevail in this case. Many of the members of the audience have known me as the Hydro Archon ever since they were born. There would be no fooling. See? Even the Oratrice has decided to show me its favor. Our If you wish to drop the case, I can promise you as the god of justice.
An argument with near impossible odds, huh?
Well, I tried to give you the chance to surrender. If I was not the Archon, then how did I manage to live for over 500 years?
First of all, you may be a member of another long-lived race, which would allow you to naturally possess an extended lifespan. And second of all, even if that wasn't the case, there could be other ways to extend your life.
Who gave you that idea? Was it the knave? You'd sink so low as to—
A curse? I once thought it possible that the aura of an Archon might not— But in light of this claim, perhaps what I sensed was not your divinity, but a curse after all.
Neverlet sensed it too, huh?
Lady Furina.
Well, it is true that it's a...
Well, don't start celebrating too early now. Even if I have been carrying a curse like you said, how does that prove that I am merely a human being? Besides, everyone knows that the main difference between a human and a god is the possession of authority. Gods can do what humans cannot. For centuries, manifestations of my authority have served the nation of Fontaine. One need only to turn their eyes towards the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinal in this very opera house, or consider the...
You tried to reference the Oratrice. But weren't you as confused as all the rest of us when the Oratrice declared Child to be guilty without any proof? Otherwise, you should have come up with a good explanation for that by now.
Didn't I make myself clear at the time? The decisions of the gods are naturally difficult for humans to comprehend.
Lady Furina, I believe a reminder of your current circumstance. While the court is in session, the principles of justice and the law must come before all else. While you are an Archon, you are also first and foremost the defendant in this trial. You will prove yourself unable to defend against the prosecution's charges if you continue to withhold vital information against the rules of the court.
I never thought you'd use that kind of rhetoric against me.
That was no trick of rhetoric, Lady Furina. I've merely reiterated the rules of the court. Rules that all should respect and follow.
So, you neither knew why Child was declared guilty, nor did you understand the structure and operations of the Oratrice. Instead of having been created by you, the manifestations of authority you mentioned have been made by the real Hydro Archon, haven't they?
The real Hydro Archon? Well, it is true that I did not know why the Oratrice gave out a guilty verdict that day. But the Oratrice handed out that verdict unilaterally. And it has been operating independently. You can't argue that just because a divine creation is flawed.
She's still throwing out all kinds of excuses. Seems like she's confident that we won't be able to
My power as an Archon. There are many ordinary citizens.
If that poses a concern, I'm prepared to
You don't need to go that far.
Aren't you the Hydro Archon? Or is it that you can't even wield the power?
Indemnitium! Yes! It's all because of Indemnitium! All Archons derive, thus did I give up all of my divine power to provide everyone with energy for their daily lives.
Isn't that?
Yeah, no matter how generous...
It seems like nobody's buying Furina's excuse.
Hey, come now, everyone. Please don't stare at me as if I'm still the same Furina you knew, right? Please.
If what the prosecutor said is true...
Did she deceive all of us?
Enough! That's enough. Tell me then, if I'm not the real Hydro Archon, If you have no evidence of another Hydro Archon's existence, nor can you find anyone who can back up their claim to be such, then what grounds have you to say that I'm not actually the real deal?
Wow, she came up with yet another... that doesn't sound right. It has been established that all Fontanians can dissolve...
Since you insist on claiming to be a god and not a human, then there's a method that you can use right here and now to eliminate all suspicions.
Miss Navia, please apply to serve as a temporary attorney for the prosecution before addressing the court.
Super sorry, Monsieur Chief Justice. Now, I've brought some seawater from Poisson, including those... So, Miss Furina, if we are to believe that you are indeed the real Hydro Archon, but if you don't dare to touch it, then we would have basically proved the reverse. Oh, and I must remind you that after the disaster at Poisson, I do hope you'll act prudently and choose this
Navia from the Spinadi. If Lady Furina is indeed just a...
Lady Furina, this test has been unilaterally proposed by the prosecution, as it falls outside the realm of standard court proceedings.
Well, of course he had to tell her that, but...
She's just staring at...
What's going on? Is she
Due to the inherent risk of the test, Lady Furina.
What?
Hey!
I'm fine! Look at me, everyone! Will you believe me now? I really am your Archon! I'm nothing like a normal human who would fall apart.
Miss Siegewin? If you're present, Miss Siegewin, please come forward and attend to the defendant.
Siegewin? Don't be nervous. It'll just take a few seconds. Let me see. That should be enough.
Please announce the results of your evaluation to the court, Miss Siegewin.
As everyone doubtlessly saw, Miss Furina was displaying symptoms of hyperventilation and flushed skin. These indicate that she was experiencing the adverse effects of exposure to primordial seawater. The extent to which she was affected is the same as other humans when exposed to primordial seawater of a similar concentration.
Thank you, Miss Siegewin. Lady Furina, you may...
Oh, wait. What did she just say? I didn't get dissolved!
Well, considering your tendency to run from your problems, we did, however. After extensive discussion, we exchanged it for a sample that is not concentrated enough to dissolve an actual human. After all, we don't want anyone else to lose.
Yeah, so out of regard for Furina's life, you secured a low-concentration sample and asked the head... It's a great thing that the direct sample wasn't actually you.
I can't... Listen to me, everyone! Please don't give me such... Think about it! How can you conclusively prove that an Archon can't also be affected by the primordial sea? Also, if I was really just a human, why would I dare to just put my hand... Please, everyone, anyone, just listen to me! I swear, I really am your Archon!
I
don't think anything she says at this point will sway anyone. The odds are just too stacked against her now.
With all the things that have been said, Paimon doesn't think there's any way left.
I believe the time for arguments and presentation of evidence has come to an end. If there are no objections, we will move on to the final judgment.
I don't think anything she says at this point will sway anyone. She's just too stacked against her now.
In my capacity as Chief Justice, I shall now render judgment on Furina's misrepresentation of herself as the Archon of Fontaine. As a human who knowingly deceived her fellow citizens, Furina is guilty. We shall now turn to the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale to render the final verdict on the charges. According to the judgment of the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinale, Furina is...
Well, what's wrong? What's the Oratrice's verdict?
No, the Oratrice also displays a guilty verdict.
Isn't that correct then?
However, the exact wording of the verdict is thus: the Hydro Archon, guilty to be punished via the death sentence.
The death sentence?
That's actually one of the available sentences? I've always thought that it was just a myth.
The one and only time the death sentence has been handed out at the court, and it's been given to the very person...
Furina's been sentenced to death by the Oratrice? We just wanted to use the...
This outcome is indeed quite strange. According to Fontaine, is this sentence really appropriate for the crimes that have...
Yeah! Even Fauché wasn't sentenced to death by the Oratrice.
Indeed. Not only is Furina's sentence overly excessive, the very point of our trial today was also to prove that Furina has never been the Hydro Archon in the first place. But now, the Oratrice seems to have deliberately invoked the title of the Hydro Archon.
Excuse me, if I may interrupt. Is the trial still going?
Fremine! You finally made it.
Mm-hmm. Any mission for...
Is that the first prophecy sling? Huh. So the knave privately arranged...
I looked everywhere and finally found... But has the trial already concluded?
Thank you for your hard work, Mr. Fremine. Please allow me to review the record left on the slip. Traveler, I believe that you have already seen the other existing slates.
Huh? So what do you see? What is it?
I believe I have now made sense of the Hydro Archon's crime. It has to do with Fontaine's lost history.
Huh? Isn't the Hydro Archon just guilty of deceiving her people? So when you say Hydro Archon, do you mean the
In truth, everything that you've encountered in Fontaine up until this point can be traced back to the contents of the... However, I'm uncertain as to how much sense they currently make to you.
Okay, let's try to recall the contents of the other... The first stone slate describes what you just said. It seems to show the previous Hydro Archon using her divine power, and then the Oceanids turn into humans. Does that mean that Fontanians are transformed Oceanids? Oh, Paimon wasn't expecting that. The second stone slate shows Celestia floating in the sky, and the Hydro Archon and her people worshipping it together. But the heavens, this must be the point when the Hydro Archon and the Fontanians were branded with their original sin. The third slate shows the Hydro Archon sinking into the sea surround. That reminds Paimon. Well, the fourth slate is the prophecy the Fontanians have been talking about. People dissolving into the sea, the Hydro Archon. We didn't believe that such a crazy disaster could happen at first, did we? That doesn't sound... That doesn't...
We know from the case of the serial disappearances of young women, and the first stone slate tells us that long ago the Hydro Archon... This might be the reason that...
That doesn't sound... That doesn't... That doesn't...
Perhaps what is about the true sin of the Hydra and the original sin cast...
That doesn't...
It's not as... When Navi of the stone... The prophecy from the fortress of... If we hadn't dealt with it in time, things could have gone very badly.
They'll dissolve into the primordial sea but won't cease to exist. Their essence will flow in the seawater. Convert! The Hydro Archon was sentenced to death in court, shocking everyone present. Navia fell into the water inside those ruins, and she nearly dissolved. She was surrounded by the people of Poisson. The eruption of the primordial sea at the fortress of Meripede. The stone slate's content can all be verified by recent events. If we combine... Huh? Oh, Paimon gets it now! So that's how you can make sense of it, but... Then it feels like... we're...
Let's hear them.
Incredible.
All Fontanians were originally created by the late previous Hydro Archon, with Oceanids as their basis. The evidence for that can be found in how only Fontanians could dissolve in primordial seawater, and how all the girls Vacher dissolved were also turned into Oceanids. Oh, and according to Navia, when she was about to get dissolved...
Indeed.
Yeah! And it follows from the content of the first slate. That could also explain why the Oratrice judged the Hydro Archon to be...
The Hydro Archon's true...
And yet, after many hundreds of years, The Hydro Archon's creations have turned around to try to judge the Archon within the Opera Epiclese.
Yeah! Isn't the image here just like when Navia fell into the sea? So wouldn't it be trying to show the image of the Hydro Archon also falling into the sea once the prophecy has been fulfilled in the fourth slate? In the end, the people will all be dissolved into the waters, and only the Hydro Archon will remain. Did Paimon get all that right?
You've made some keen deductions. I must say, given how much you still don't know. However, while you were able to decode all the information on the slates, they've also been etched with an additional layer of hidden information using. When we were at the ruins, I tried to decipher the hidden information recorded in the slates. But since we only had 3, now that the slate collection is complete, I shall make another attempt to decipher the narrative record.
Well?
I believe I should share this truth not only with you, but with all the people of Fontaine as well. I will try to briefly summarize it for you. Your hypotheses regarding the origin of Fontainians and the sin of the Hydro Archon were both correct. In the Fontaine of old, the previous Hydro Archon sensed the yearning of her Oceanid familiars for life on land. The Oceanids were enamored with the beauty and romanticism of human beings, and wishing to have those experiences for themselves, expressed to the Hydro Archon their desire to become of a similar kind. However, even though water as an element is intricately linked with the power of life, the Hydro Archon, as one of the 7, did not possess the authority to create a new form. Not one to give in, she eventually found a way to create permanent humanoid bodies for her familiars by appropriating the power of this planet's primordial sea. She poured primordial seawater into the Oceanid's blood vessels, creating humanoid mimics in the process. But if Fontainians were to ever come into direct contact with water from the primordial sea, the power within their bodies would escape these artificial restraints and return to the sea. As a result, their forms would collapse, and they would be reverted to their original form. Of course, the Hydro Archon never received permission from the heavenly principles to create a new human race. And thus, the Hydro Archon and all of her creations came to shoulder the original sin of appropriating the power of the primordial sea. That is the true history of how the people of Fontaine first came into being.
So you...
That's way too much information for me. I think... Wait, but if that's the truth, we can't let the Hydro Arc...
This really might be too much information for...
Alas, your hypothesis regarding the 3rd and 4th stone slates was inaccurate. The slates' respective positions are, in fact, correct. A key point of the visual on the 3rd slate is how all the individuals depicted in the water are humans. They have not been dissolved, which implies that the water... The nation of Fontaine is the nation of Hydro, as well as the nation of trials and justice. Instead of being the literal element, the water in the scene symbolizes judgment and justice. You may also recall Navia's experience. When she fell into the sea, her consciousness was surrounded by that of many others who intended to hold a trial to determine her fate. Therefore, the meaning that the people of Fontaine shall try the Hydro Archon at the court of justice. Yes, it refers to our...
I think I'm following now. So, in truth, everything we've done has happened exactly as the prophecy foretold.
What should we do?
Huh. No matter what,
If that's the case, does that mean the scene in the...
Traveler, I would like to point out another small fallacy in your deductions about the 4th slate. You probably thought that the eruption of primordial seawater beneath the fort... However, I believe that rather than being a sure sign, that it... As for the root cause of the catastrophe, I believe you've already encountered it once before. This eruption was just a small warning of the things to come. We must find the root cause of the disaster.
It was both dream.
If we're talking about a true culprit, that could only be that thing inside the Primordial Sea, right?
The truth, the original sin.
That was way too close! How did that thing just burst into the Opera House? Wait, was that the huge whale you saw in your dream?
So we've met it at last. I understand very well why it is chosen. That whale does not belong to Teyvat. It is a monster that has traversed. It has been greedily consuming the energy from the planet's primordial sea. And once it has finished consuming all of the energy...
You said that when the Hydro Archon first created Fontanians out of Ocean...
Precisely. That whale Therefore, when it left the primordial sea, it decided to make its next stop a packed opera house full of food. Food in the form of Fontanians.
We just barely managed to push it back, right?
That is correct. Indeed, it is more accurate to say that we should thank that Harbinger for buying us some time. From the way he looked, he must have been fighting the creature for quite a long time.
That battle maniac. We've always known that he had a special connection. Anyway, now that we know that this whale is the actual cause...
It is too late. It had already absorbed too much of the primordial sea's energy before we could notice it. Even if the entirety of Teyvat were to be destroyed, it could still survive.
That's not something... We've already done everything we can. We've come so far. You can't...
Indeed. That's not how a grand performance should end.
I'll fight it to the end. No matter what.
So the prophecy will be fulfilled no matter what, huh?
The prophecy. Yes, what has been prophesied will be fulfilled. You may view such things as the history of the future. Just as prophecies are usually only the future as seen from the perspectives of the gods, could things be happening in hidden corners where the gods' gaze does not? Ultimately, fate shall serve as your only guide, no matter what will happen in Teyvat's future.
What's happening with the oratories?
I believe it is preparing to carry out the death sentence.
Furina! monsters!
You...
Sorry. That shocked expression on your face is just too amusing. I couldn't help myself.
You are not Furina.
Ah, the sweet sound of bewilderment. Marvelous. A sure sign that my attempt to deceive everyone was a resounding success. But to answer...
Fusalo. Why did you deceive us?
Oh, that wasn't my goal, of course. Goodness, no. But I had to fool everyone else too, if I was to stand any chance of deceiving the heavenly principles.
Deceiving the heavenly principles?
It's all because of that pernicious prophecy. Dreadful, wasn't it? Everyone doomed to dissolve. Fontaine... One was not amused. In fact, one was positively bemused when that problem was thrust upon me by my dearest predecessor. That's the former Hydro Archon Egeria, for the uninitiated. She knew full well that the prophecy would surely come to pass, and as one of the seven, she also knew full well that one defies the heavenly principles at one's peril. So yes, as you have no doubt surmised, it was a rather impossible situation that I found myself in. I spent a terribly long time mulling it over, alone on the ocean floor. And I was almost growing barnacles by the time I finally realized there was only one possible solution to this. I had to outwit the heavenly principles, allow the prophecy to be fulfilled, ostensibly at least. I'm a genius, I know. I can only assume, although looking back now, it was hardly the inheritance one dreams of. Between the task of saving the nation, the quotidian duties of the Hydro Archon, and not to mention the original sin of creating a new race of humans. But one can only play the hand one is dealt. I did not choose this, any more than I chose to—
So you were also once one of the Oceanids?
Yes, I was. I always dreamed of becoming human. And I still do, even now. After becoming a god, I separated my divinity from my body and spirit, leaving behind only a self that was as naive and bewildered as my past self on her first day as a human being. The me you see before you now is that divinity. And the human counterpart I left behind, I named Furina. She could feel joy, sorrow, and everything in between. She could be as vain and conceited, or as meek and vulnerable. Her strengths were of a kind only a human could possess. But in my eyes, Furina's humanity was what made her perfect. She was perfectly human in every way. The person I always wanted to be. Anyway, so then I cursed her. All part of the plan, of course. The plan to deceive the heavenly principle. Do you still remember the final scene of the prophecy? In order that the prophecy might appear fulfilled, I invited Furina to be an actress, to play under the curse I placed on her. So long as I, Focalor's divinity, continued to exist, she could not die. But nor was she free to live her. Instead, she was forced to take the stage in the opera house, to embrace the role of leading. I suppose now you probably understand what—
But Furina is only human. Even though she has had a long life, I cannot begin to fathom what she is.
It has indeed. And although she is, in a sense, me in human form, I most definitely owe her an apology for. It's been 500 years, and all along, she's been playing her part in the most unimaginably long, unbearably lonely, and agonizingly painful opera of all time.